I can hear you okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Good.
Perfect.
Apparently we're waiting for Goldsman to come on. And you don't, you haven't,
No, I haven't been able to get in touch with anybody.
well, we have 2 minutes still anyway, so. And the roses, I think, I told them probably 7:45, because, you know, I didn't, so, but if need to, we can, you know, get them on early. They're coming remotely too.
Oh, good, okay.
So, and what did you tell Doug? Was he gonna just,
He was gonna hop on around 7:30.
around 7:30?
I told him I would text him. He just said before he left, he'll hop on at 7:30.
Okay. I was gonna say, I don't think we'll be at, certainly won't be to it at 7:30. Okay. And we won't need him the entire time. I just want him to explain a few things from his point of view. Too bad Scott isn't here, because I think he was interested in that.
I know.
But he can, but obviously he can watch the tape if, you know. So.
Yeah. Not tonight, no.
Apparently he's in France. All right, well, we're at 7:15, so why don't we at least get going and get through meeting minutes and some other things until hopefully J.M. Goldson pops on soon. All right, so Mackie, you can count us down when you're ready.
All right, starting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ashland Planning Board meeting of Thursday, January 8th, first one of the new year. I want to remind everyone that the meeting is being broadcast and recorded. I will call the meeting to order right on time at 7:15. And looking at the clerk's report, the chair and clerk's report, we have received 3 emails by my count from unique sources since our last meeting. One of these involved getting information about 16 West Union Street, which I think Melissa and Jasmine took care of. Another one was in regard to the in-law apartments, which we're going to discuss tonight. I think Jasmine answered that one as well. And the final one was regarding a property at Cross Street, and you probably saw those emails go back and forth. Becca, the email went out to a lot of different people across Town Hall. Becca ended up kind of spearheading that one, and I jumped in a little bit at the end as well. So if anyone has any further questions about those, they can ask. We may or may not know the answers. Moving on to public comment. I will open it up to public comment. All right.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, great, thank you.
Catherine Jersey, 11 Rodman Road.
Oh, thanks, Kate.
Catherine Jersey, 11 Rodman Road. I have a couple comments and questions. So the committee for implementation of the comprehensive plan, that was last left off with, it was going to go forward with the planning board and select board, and I wanted to find out the status of that.
Yes, we were going to report on the status later. Actually, I was going to ask Anna. Anna, you were going to, I don't know if you had a chance to do this, but obviously we just went through the holidays. You were going to reach out to Yolanda to see about a process of how to start initiating a process for forming that committee. Were you able to do that, or was the holiday season, is that something obviously we need to go forward with in the new year?
I just sent, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just sent her an email today. So my hope is that post-holidays, we'll move this forward as soon as possible.
All right, sounds good. Over the holidays, it wouldn't have gotten far anyway, so, all right, next question.
Thank you. I just, as a participant in the two-year process, have a vested interest in that not getting lost.
Absolutely.
Then I just, this is a comment, so I know it's on the agenda later, but it's more a little bit general, that when there's a bylaw, that really needs to be published, like there's a public hearing, but I'm coming to the public hearing, I'm interested, any bylaw change, I hope every citizen, every resident is interested in, but we're gonna hear it for the first time, and now, like, I feel like that's not productive to having the hearing, so, and I know the planning board has in the past had more than one hearing if there was a new bylaw, so I hope that that will continue, but I feel like as part of the process, I'm requesting that the draft gets published as it's advertised for the public to come comment.
Yeah, I agree. I actually, with the start of things in the new year, I actually wasn't even sure that this was going to be on our agenda for today. So it does need to get out there. It is in a form where we are going to be able to comment on it and change it. I've kind of been going through it trying with a fine-tooth comb, so there is opportunity to participate here. Yeah, but like, you're right, it should be out there so that people can see it. It is what we have right now, the draft is exactly the same as the warrant, but that doesn't mean that people have it in their hands, so.
And I guess the third thing, since I don't see Mark here, I'm just gonna thank you and wish you a happy new year, because that's something he would do, so.
Thank you.
Hi, Cece Doucette, 31 Fatima Drive. I'm the Director of Massachusetts for Safe Technology, and there are some initiatives going forward right now up in Washington, D.C. that I wanted to keep you apprised of and ask for your participation in. So I sent out an email last night. There, you may remember that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, was sued back in 2021 for ignoring 11,000 pages of evidence of harm in the public record on wireless radiation risks. And the judges found the FCC to be arbitrary and capricious when they reaffirmed their 1996 public radiation exposure limits. And so the courts remanded it back to the FCC to account for radiation impact on children, the elderly, those with existing health conditions, electromagnetic radiation sensitivities, plus everything else living in the environment, the birds, the bees, and the trees. It's been 4 years and the FCC has done nothing. But now they're doing a full court press with the FCC and the industry. The FCC has opened up docket 25-276. They did it in December. The initial comment period was through December 31st. And now we're in the reply comment, and anybody is welcome to input new comments into the public record. Basically, what they're going to do is strip complete local control from where cell towers can be placed in our community. So if this does not get stopped, you can literally wake up with no input, no warning, and they're going to be out there putting a cell tower out in front of your home. So I am asking that Ashland take a look at the documents that are filed in that public record. You will find organizations all across the country, mayors, cities, all over saying, whoa, you have no right to strip our town of local control. So I would like to ask that Ashland also consider putting something in that public record, because if we don't speak up once those cell towers go up, there's really nothing we can do about it. And then there are, they're not ones to put all their eggs in any basket. There are also bills out there that they are filing at the federal level that would also strip local control from our planning board, our zoning board, and our municipality. So I'm asking that you look for the email that I sent last night, take a look at the public records. Some of the folks who sued the FCC have culled through already what's been filed. It could be one sentence saying, yes, we agree with the, XYZ cities or organizations that have filed on this, but I would like to see Ashland get into the public record if we can. And then there's another international effort that's going on that you just might want to be aware of. Some of you might know Dry January and Parch March, where people kind of give up alcohol for the month because it's been a long holiday season. There's an international effort now called Off February to encourage people to join in and take social media off of their personal devices and reclaim the time that we had for our lives and our families. So I will send you something on that. That's just a little fun thing. Lastly, I wanted to give you a quick update on the bills that are filed in Massachusetts. You may know that I helped New Hampshire pass the first law in the country to investigate wireless radiation risks to people in the environment. They came out with a groundbreaking commission report, and one of their recommendations, after looking at the science, was that cell towers should never be closer than 1,500 feet or 1,640 feet or 500 meters. That's where the death and neurotoxicity rates start coming down from cell tower damage. And we have a bill with Senator Sear that has now been reported out favorably from the Consumer Protection Committee that would do what New Hampshire has already done. We also have a bill that's still alive to give everybody the right to opt out of these toxic utility smart meters for gas, water, and electric that are being imposed on our homes. So I hope that the town will seriously consider allowing everybody who asks to have a no-fee opt-out, because when you get sick with electromagnetic radiation syndrome, you kind of lose your job. You don't have a revenue stream to pay a tariff just to access your public utilities. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Don't see any public comment online. All right, so we will move on to public meetings section of our agenda. Do you want to do the introductions there, Jasmine?
So we actually have a
a representative
from
from James Goldson.
Okay, that should be fine. Okay, so we actually have a representative from JM Goldson with us. We have Flavio, who's going to be giving a presentation of a draft overview of the housing production plan. And once he's finished with his presentation, then you'll be able to ask questions at the end of that.
Great, thank you. I wonder if the procurement stuff would be interesting for me, or helpful. I made a note, yeah.
We're just going to connect the laptop via Zoom in just a second, and then he'll be able to continue the presentation. I'm sorry about the tea. That's terrible.
What was going on?
The tea broke down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my
wow.
gosh.
From Boston?
Oh.
You wouldn't let him know that it might be, yeah. Oh, great.
Just okay, great. Okay, perfect. Well, good night. My name is Flavio. I am a community planner in JM Goldson. You've probably met Austin and Jen. I have also been part of the comp plan process, and now I'm part of the housing production plan process. Just to mention that if there is something that you don't get because of my accent, please just you can tell me, and I can repeat any idea that you need. Jen was going to be here, but she had an impromptu molar surgery, so yep, we had to go in the room. Okay, so today I'm going to be presenting the housing needs assessment for the housing production plan. This is our agenda for today. First, I'm going to talk about housing production plans, what is its purpose and why are we doing this. Then I'm going to present the housing needs assessment and the key takeaways from our analysis. And then we will talk a little bit about the next steps and the planning process. So first, our consultant team. Well, you've met Jen. She's the project director and manager. She's the founder of JM Goldson. And me, yours truly. I'm the project assistant in this project. So first, background. So what is a housing production plan? It is a state-recognized tool. It's a state-recognized and incentive-based policy tool that guides and helps local decision makers to respond to housing needs. Housing needs evolve, are dynamic, and they change over the years. So the housing production plan influences the location, the pace, and the type of housing that a specific town needs. It is very important to mention that Ashland's current housing production plan is valid until May 23rd in this year, so it has like 4 months, like a little bit over 4 months. This is our way of doing housing production plans. This is a diagram that we made at the office. It's our 8 stages of the housing process, or the housing planning process, I'm sorry. So right now we are in this second stage in which we are understanding the current situation in Ashland. And then we are going to the third stage in ideating. We have a forum, a community forum on January the 20th, in which we will receive ideas and feedback from the community. After that, we will go to our fourth stage, in which we will create a draft plan, and we will propose some strategy ideas. In our fifth stage, called testing, we will bring those strategy ideas to you, so you can give us your feedback on those. And then we need to decide. We have 2 more meetings with the planning board, and ideally we would need to invite the select board so we can decide which strategies stay in the plan and which ones we can take out. And finally, in organizing, this is our 7th stage, we will create a 5-year action plan with timelines and responsible entities. We will assign responsible entities to each strategy that ideally will fulfill those strategies in the next 5 years. And finally, in committing, both the planning board and the select board need to approve the plan before we send it to the state for approval. The order in which those votes happen, that doesn't matter. Like planning board can come first, or select board can come first. That will not alter the product. Yes.
You said that there would be 2 more meetings with the planning board.
Yes.
Is that the planning board and the select board?
We will.
Sorry, I was asking about the number of meetings, again, that after tonight, we would expect 2 more meetings, is in the yellow and orange stages?
Yes. I will talk more about that in the next steps part, but yes, we have 2 more meetings, and ideally we would like to invite the select board so they can also weigh in on the strategies.
Okay, great, thank you.
So affordable housing, which is a topic that we have been talking a lot about in Massachusetts, it is regulated by Chapter 40B, and Chapter 40B encourages municipalities to keep 10% affordable housing stock on their housing units. This is measured by something that is called the subsidized housing inventory. Ashland currently has a subsidized housing inventory of 5.8%, and which we will talk about the concept of safe harbor in a bit, but basically that is below the benchmark, which is a reason why Ashland is not in safe harbor right now. We acknowledge that there are like 3 projects in the pipeline, and I will also talk about that in a bit. But right now, this is the current situation. So what is the purpose of a housing production plan? The biggest one is to regain safe harbor and to try to remain over the 10% or to remain in a status in which the Zoning Board of Appeals has its full power. A safe harbor is a situation in which a Zoning Board of Appeals has its full power and can deny 40B permits. When the Zoning Board of Appeals, or when the town is not in safe harbor, the Zoning Board of Appeals loses that power and the state can overrule its mandates. So that is the first one, which is, I think, one of the most important ones. The second one is like hearing from the residents, hear what the community actually wants, what are your goals, your interests, your vision for your community, identify, well, then transform those visions into future policies based on those needs. And another one, which is a really good reason to have a housing production plan, is because it's a really good tool to access state grants, especially through the community one-stop for growth applications, which is a single application it's a single application that municipalities can fill out, so they can apply to multiple grants at the same time. And a housing production plan is one of the incentives that the state takes to increase the possibility for a community to access those grants. So which are the components of a housing production plan? First, the housing needs assessment, which I'm going to present today. Then development and constraints and opportunities analysis, talking about like the zoning, the environmental constraints. Then the 5-year goals, and the strategies, which are things that we are going to talk later in this planning process. So, so far, so good. Do you have any questions? Yes.
My question is, how many more housing units do we need to hit the 10%? If we're at 5.8?
Yes, so I have some maths here. Basically, and I'm going to talk about this later, but something that I can say at this point is there are 3 4TV projects in the pipeline. The Sanctuary, 55 West, and the residences. Basically approving or building the Sanctuary and one more would reach 10% and would be over 10%. Building the 3 of them would take you to like 12.7%. And building only 55 West Union and the residences, that doesn't get you to 10%. So it's at least the Sanctuary and one of the other 2. There are also different ways to reach safe harbor, which we can talk about later. One is like building these projects, actually like having the SHI units ready for occupancy. But also, if you approve these 4TV permits after having a housing production plan, you can access something called incremental growth. That changes the formula a little bit. We can talk about that later. First, I'm going to present the housing needs assessment. Okay. So this is the current situation of Ashland. We have gone over different sources like the U.S. Census and the American Community Survey and some others from the state. And these are the main takeaways. Ashland population is expected to grow. It's growing a lot and is aging a lot. So it went from 11, so the senior population went from 11% in 2010 and it's going to go to 20% in 2050. Not only that, the population is also getting more ethnically diverse, which is something that is been happening in the state as a whole and in the region. And usually population growth needs housing production to accommodate those demographic changes. This is something natural that has been happening in Ashland, being a town that is so attractive and people want to come and live here. Another situation happens with households, in which households have been getting smaller. That has been happening in the state as well, but is in Ashland, the household size was not reducing that much, but in the last few years it has been reducing, and it has been projected to reduce even more. So households, before there were like 3 or 2.9 people per household, and we're probably going to project that to like 2.2 or 2.1 in the next few decades. So in the sense that households decrease, then the market needs smaller housing units, like 1 bedrooms, 2 bedroom studios. And something that happens in Massachusetts or in Northeastern, in New England, is that some of these housing structures were built a long time ago, and the needs were different at that time. And now there is a growing demand for smaller and more accessible units for older adults or maybe younger people or single people. Another thing that is happening right now in Ashland is that it lacks this thing that we call the missing middle. The missing middle are housing types that have between 2 or 4 units, like 2 families, 3 families, 4 families. And in fact, only 4% of Ashland's housing structures are 2 or 3 families. And as we can see in this chart, in this pie chart, 92% are single families. What happens is that usually those are rental units, and that constrains the housing market and makes housing costs more expensive. I have a definition here. So what is the missing middle? As I said, these are smaller units that are between single families and big developments. So these are like duplexes or townhomes, fourplexes, like those buildings that are very gentle, are like their density are very gentle, they're not that tall, and they will not alter that much the urban profile of the town, as in Framingham, for example, that they have like really big developments. So, and they also, because of the size and because of the density they have, they usually provide more affordable, walkable, and diverse housing choices.
But can I ask another
Yes.
question? The fourplexes, like, because it seems like we have a lot of condos in Ashland that are fourplexes. Are they part of the 4 the 4 to 8 units there is all in that slice?
Yes, so this is data that comes from the assessor's database, and in the assessors, the labels are 1 family or single family, 2 families, 3 family, and then 4 to 8. So the fact of like 4%, I'm only talking about 2 to 3, like 2 family and 3 family. Mm-hmm. The real number of fourplexes, for like 4 family structures, I don't have that real number. Mm-hmm. That is data that I couldn't find. Okay, and then about the housing supply. There is this concept we call a healthy vacancy rate. Usually housing economists, they don't agree that all the housing units in a town or in a municipality should be occupied. There is this idea of a healthy vacancy rate that provides the opportunity for mobility, for housing mobility, and provides opportunity for people to be moving, or as it is needed, like it supports mobility and it prevents housing shortages during that time. Right now in Ashland, the rental vacancy rate is in 4.8, and the ownership vacancy rate is in 1.9. There are many sources about this. There is actually, this is not written in stone, so it is more about ranges. Usually housing experts agree that a healthy rental vacancy rate is between 5 to 8%, and a healthy ownership vacancy rate is between 1 to 2%. So Ashland is not very low, but it could have a little bit, like, it could insert a little bit more housing units into the market. And then there is, I'm going to introduce another concept. This is desert rental. Desert rental, I'm sorry. Desert is the sweet thing. Desert rental. So desert rental is in a situation in which over 80% of the housing stock is not rental. And that usually limits housing choices because sometimes families that need to move more, or maybe younger families that don't have the opportunity to be first-time home buyers, they need to access rental choices. In this part, Ashland is actually doing very well. 25% of the housing stock is rental. But compared to like 10 years ago, it was less than 20%. So there was a desert rental in Ashland. So in this situation, it's doing pretty good. And finally, this is also something very important that we found out during our analysis. Ashland is facing economic challenges as the region is becoming wealthier. So the median household income in Ashland declined in the last 10 years. But at the same time, the area median income increased. And this is something that you can see in this chart. So this might be bringing affordability problems to people that want to buy or want to rent houses in Ashland. And finally, I'm actually going to go to this one first. So I'm going to talk about the area median income. The area median income is the middle income of the region. It is a federal calculation that is used to for eligibility for affordable housing programs. The area median income is something that changes around the country, within the country. In this case, in the case of like the Boston metro area, which geographically for the calculation of this, it involves a lot. In this case, it is $160,900. $160,900. This is the area median income, and this value also changes according to the size of the household, and it also changes according to different needs and different geographies. So something that is very important is that to see that in the greater Boston area, in this region, for example, a one-person household, someone that is living by themselves, in the extremely low income limit, that means that that person is earning 30% of the area median income, is living with $35,000 per year. Okay, so and these numbers change. These numbers change between like the number of people in the household. It changes on what is the income limit. We have this thing that is called extremely low income, very low income, or low income, and then moderate low income, which is what comes after low income. So these are a lot of words and a lot of numbers, and I don't know it's a lot of information, but this is important because in Ashland. So now I'm going back to this slide. In Ashland, we have like these different income levels, and we have like how many households are cost burdened. Cost burden is when you pay more than 30% of your income in housing costs. And severely cost burdened is when you pay more than 50% of your income in housing costs. And you can see that in the extremely low income limit, so these are people that are living with these numbers in the year, almost like 60% of them are severely cost burdened. So this means that almost 60% of these households are paying more than 50% of their income in housing costs. So, for example, for this person that earns $35,000 per year, this person is paying $17,500 in housing costs each year. And so the summary is that of almost 40% of all cost-burdened households, so these are households that pay over 30% or over 50% of their income in housing costs, 40% are in the extreme low income range. And this is evidence that Ashland needs deep affordable housing. Not only affordable housing at 80%, but maybe even deeper, maybe at 50 or maybe at 30. So far, so good.
Flavio, question.
Yes, please.
Is this pre-tax dollars?
That is pre-tax dollars, yes.
Pre-tax, okay.
That is pre-tax, yes. Before we talk about the pipeline and the ASHI, do you have another question? No. Well, as I mentioned before, currently Ashland is not in safe harbor, which this reduces the zoning boards of appeals local power. Ashland is in 5.8% in your subsidized housing inventory. It was in safe harbor until 2023 because of the Arbella approval, but the Arbella was never built. So those units were never counted in the ASHI. That is the reason why this percentage is very low. So approving the 3 ongoing 4TV projects in the pipeline would bring the ASHI percentage to 12.7. As I said before, actually you don't need to approve all 3. If you approve the sanctuary and one more, you would reach 10%. So that is one of the ways in which Ashland can reach safe harbor, going over the 10%. There is another way that is the incremental production. So when a town has a state-approved housing production plan, and that is very important, the housing production plan needs to be approved by the state, not only by the local boards. When that happens, you can access something that is called the incremental growth or the incremental production. If Ashland in one calendar year approves 0.5% of their housing units, it gets 1 year of safe harbor. And if it approves 1% of its housing units, it gets 2 years of safe harbor. That was what happened last time. Well, last time you approved in 2021 your housing production plan, and then you approved the Arbella, which was like 180 units, I think. That 1% was 66 units, so you got 2 years of safe harbor until 2023. So in this sense, right now, according to Census 2020, Ashland had 7,500 units, well, actually 7,495. So the 1% would be 75 units. Basically, approving any of these would give you 2 years of safe harbor. Very important, after the housing production plan is approved by the state. If the housing production is not approved by the state, it's the same as nothing. Okay, so it is very important to see the order of the actions so that you can regain safe harbor again.
Can I just reiterate right there?
Yeah.
So to Flavio's point, if we don't have a current approved housing production plan, you cannot meet any of those incremental growth numbers. You have to have an active approved plan. So if it expires or it's not approved, the only way to do that is by reaching your 10% SHI.
Does that mean we're just kicking the can down the road by doing this process?
No, our housing production plan is current until May of 2026, which is why we're updating it right now, so we can send it for approval, so it can remain active and then be active for another 5 years. So we won't have to hopefully do this for another 5 years after this.
Mm-hmm. But having a housing production plan by itself doesn't get you safe harbor. Okay, so and that is also something that we should have clear. Yes. And the other thing that it's something that was, it was a conversation in the previous housing planning process was the concept of inclusionary zoning, which an inclusionary zoning bylaw mandates a percentage of affordable units within market rate developments. Or it offers incentives. For example, if a developer provides affordable units in their development, they get density bonuses, for example. Like they can build more units, or they get another floor, or they get a bigger FAR, or they can also pay a fee in lieu of the requirement. And that sometimes goes to the housing trust or goes to the town, so they can use it in other projects, or they can use it in their own affordable housing. Currently, Ashland doesn't have an inclusionary zoning bylaw. Only the Pond Street Overlay District has some kind of inclusionary zoning. But that would be another good policy tool, so you can enhance the production of affordable housing town-wide, and not only in the 4TV zoning district or in the Pond Street Overlay District. And finally, so this is a process that is coming immediately after the Envision Ashland Comprehensive Plan. And this was recently endorsed by town meeting on November last year. And the vision in the comprehensive plan related to housing, there were two main points. One was about enhancing downtown by creating a mixed-use village. And the other one was to manage neighborhood evolution by creating context-sensitive residential projects. So it is very important that we, in the next steps that I talked about a little bit ago, we are building on the comprehensive plan. The CP has 7 strategies related to housing, which are these ones. And we are planning on basing our strategies on those ones. Maybe not like copy-pasting them. Maybe we can consolidate 2. I think there are 2 of these. I think these are the 2A9 or 2A10 that talk about sustainability. Maybe those 2 can become one single strategy in the housing production plan, because usually housing plans have fewer strategies. But we are going to build on this plan that we just finished. Any question? Thank you. So next steps, there is a public forum in 2 weeks on January the 20th at a community center. We will launch a community survey that is already done. We just need to launch it so people can also give us their feedback. We will also provide different online resources. And we finished the interviews with community leaders. This was some of you, I've been talking with some of you, I think. And then we have 2 more planning board meetings, and ideally we would like the select board to be invited to them, so we can also talk about the different strategies. And finally, well, this is what I just said, but in a diagram in which you can see how all these dates, everything will happen before the current plan expires, so you can still have a valid plan and you can access the incremental housing production. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you guys have any other questions? Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Will you be with us on the 20th when we do the
I won't be able to.
No, okay. Will Jen be there?
Yes,
Yes,
probably
okay.
Jen and Austin.
Okay.
All right, great. Thank you for the
No
update.
problem. Thank you for your attention.
Is that a presentation that you'll that can be made available and given to the planning board? Okay, yeah, great. Thank you. All right, next on our agenda is 21 Olive Street. That is an ANR. I see Ed Rose is online. He is the applicant, and just full disclosure, for this project, I did submit to the town's clerk's office an appearance of conflict of interest form. The Roses are my friends, and until we moved, longtime neighbors. So I'm very familiar with the property that he is talking about on this ANR. So, but with that, I will turn it over to Jasmine.
Absolutely. Give me just a moment while I get this plan up. So we have a very simple A&R in front of us, which an A&R simply means it stands for approval not required. And what that means is that there is not a subdivision required for either the division of lots or for the combination of lots. So what Mr. Rose is proposing to do is he's proposing to take 3 lots on Olive Street. One of them is, they are all existing lots. 2 of them have existing access and frontage. One of them is currently landlocked in the center. And what Mr. Rose is proposing to do is combine all 3 lots into 1 lot. That way they have absolute access and frontage for the 1 single lot now instead of having 1 landlocked. Sorry, give me just a moment while I get this up.
Is there any paper copy of that in the file?
There's that one right there
Okay,
that's
this-
just rolled off. The one large one in the center. Did you receive this in your meeting materials by chance?
It was in the material, yeah.
Oh, it was, okay.
So, yeah, so if you, I guess I have it on screen.
Just got the old one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Flavia. I hope you get home well and safely. You're okay to get back to the commuter rail? Okay, thank you.
Can't come in with it. Look, Jack. Big benches, stuff like this.
I don't think he's meaning to talk, though.
I don't know.
I don't
who
know
it
that he
was.
meant to do that. That was Ed.
It didn't sound like him.
I don't know if there's somebody in the background. It sounded like he was talking with somebody in the background.
Yeah.
So- oh,
Sorry, I'm at a restaurant.
Oh, no, worries. Thank you
I'm
so
actually
much.
at a ski resort, and it's loud music and all that, so.
All right. Well, Ed, just as background, do you just want to explain, I know, understand the project, but do you just want to explain what you're doing with the lots and how you came about having the lots?
So what happened years ago, there was a developer that wanted to buy the 2 acres behind our house. And we went to my neighbor and said, you have 2 choices, either you sell to us or we're moving. And he sold them to us, so it's a landlocked piece of land, and actually the planning board was not happy with that because it's landlocked. But we bought it, and we've been paying taxes and maintaining it and all that. But we always said at some point, we'd like to have an access, maybe oh, you there?
Yes.
Yeah, all right, good.
Yep.
So anyways, all right, there you go. So anyways, we want to have an access, maybe a subdivision, but it's for our kids, not for us. So I have no desire to do anything with that property. Now in my life, I don't need it. And the other piece of property is still left, like an acre. We haven't decided exactly what we're gonna do with it. It has a house on it, has a barn on it, or a garage on it, and it's over an acre, and we just want to subdivide that property from our property. That's all I want to do. So by combining that small piece, that half acre that we need in the back, would create a new lot for us.
So
Would
just,
you like me to review now that I have the plan, but it's a lot easier to explain. So these dashed lot lines are the existing lots. So as this exists, this is one existing lot here. This is one existing lot here, and this third parcel is another existing lot. This existing lot is landlocked. You can access it via this 20-foot wide access easement. Mr. Rose owns all of these properties, I believe.
Yes.
And so they're all held in common ownership. So this bottom parcel is the one that he does not own. So he would like to take all of his parcels that he's owned, make it one complete contiguous parcel, remove the property lines, remove the easement, and then he would have, this would be one large parcel with over 500 feet of frontage on Olive Street instead of one landlocked parcel in the back and 2 smaller. This one is a pre-existing non-conforming lot as it stands. This is a pre-existing lot. So he'll just combine them for one lot. It'll be one single-family residential lot.
so in the upper lot,
Will remain as
the
a
upper lot
single-family
is
as well.
already a separate lot and not involved in this
Correct.
conversation? Okay.
And this easement will be extinguished once these are combined.
Exactly, yeah. So you can see we're adding 80 feet to our 80 feet, times the length. And we're leaving the other 1 acre of the corner lot of 9 Olive Street as one unit there too.
So basically, these kind of questions come in terms of, does the lot being, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jasmine, but does the lot being created, does it have the proper frontage? Obviously, it will have more than enough frontage. it has obviously more than enough area to be a lot, and does it meet the rule of 22?
And also, does it have adequate access, obviously?
Access meaning,
Meaning the access from Olive Street, they don't have to create a way.
Oh.
So that's what the approval not required is, doesn't need a subdivision to create a way into the lot, so it has an
Yeah.
adequate existing.
it already has a driveway, basically, a
Or,
curb cut.
Yes, pretty much, or access from the roadway.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on this?
He was very clear when he started off that he's not planning to do anything at this stage. It is just to kind of clean up the whole area. But my question to you is, now that, when you do that, this is almost like a 4-acre
Lot, yeah.
plot, right?
Yeah,
Does that, at some point, give an opportunity for a multi-family unit?
It could potentially, anything could really, I mean, you can't. We can only approve or deny it if we think it meets subdivision control, if we think it needs a subdivision, or if it doesn't, so we can't say deny it because we're afraid of, it could be future developed. It has to be
Right.
approved under certain criteria.
thank
So
you.
it could, to your question, it could.
Yeah,
I mean, right now, it's a very straightforward thing, but there is an opportunity in the future. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I know, Anna, you're out there too. Do you have any questions?
Nope, seems pretty standard to me.
Any questions?
Standard.
I don't know. You could make a record for, you could make a statement for the record that you are familiar with people on that road, but this plan wouldn't benefit either of you in any way, and your vote wouldn't,
Just, obviously,
yeah. But if you'd
friends
like
with
to,
people on this road, obviously,
but you think you can vote fairly and equitably and non-biased
like I
on
would
this
if I was a
plan?
juror on a trial, I would
Yes.
obviously look at the information and evidence and give a fair decision on that, of course.
That's fair enough. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion from the board. Can someone make the motion?
I can try. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to
Or unless you think,
approve.
unless people think we need more discussion? Okay, wanted to make sure. Go ahead, Anna.
Since there is none, I'll make a motion to approve 21 Olive Street ANR as proposed.
Second that.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Anna Tesmanitsky, aye.
Paul Montesino, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. All right, so that is approved.
thank you very much.
All right,
Everyone, enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Okay, bye.
All right. I think just in regard to your point, I remember we had something before that we cannot make a determination based on something that might happen in the future, right? That's not part of our, what's in front of us. It only can be according to what the bylaw says about how a lot gets constructed. So, but just to make that point, okay. The next, and so do we need to sign that on our way out? Is
Yes,
that
but
the
I will
Mylar?
get the Mylar,
Mylar,
because
okay.
I'll have you sign the paper and the Mylars, because that's what they need to record.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next thing on the agenda then is the in-law apartment bylaw. And this, and I think we have Doug Scott hanging out there a little bit. So this came up when we passed the ADU bylaw in the spring, actually shortly before town meeting. we had put together an ADU bylaw in response to the state's regulation that we needed to do so, and which we were kind of intending to do anyway, but we were waiting for those state regulations. But shortly before town meeting, Doug, who was the building commissioner, Doug Scott, made a point that he felt in the way that we wrote the bylaw, which was taking out the in-law apartment and inserting into it this ADU, which in our minds was kind of the same thing, in his mind was not. And I think that in terms of, in building commissioners, building inspectors, there has been some discourse about this, that they aren't the same in their minds. And so, unless you have a different introduction, Jasmine, I'll ask Doug if he's there. Are you there, Doug?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think,
Yes, good evening, everybody.
yeah, I think it'd be great if you can just explain from your perspective how these are different, how when you go to permit something or look at an application, how is an ADU different from an in-law apartment, and why you saw this as a problem?
Sure. So when this happened, let me start by saying when this happened and I was able to see it, I went to the town council, Lisa Mead, our town council, and I sat with her and I discussed with her my concerns that the proposed ADU guidelines had a codicil in it that would delete the in-law apartment section of our zoning ordinances. And she agreed with me that once that section of our zoning ordinances was deleted, then I could no longer permit an in-law apartment. And so that's prefacing how this all came about. And so there's a big difference between an ADU and an in-law apartment. So an ADU, under the guidelines set down by the state, is treated as a single-family home. It's treated just like the home that you all live in, it's single-family home, that you own the property, that you have specific requirements. It has its own address. It has its own water and sewer. And if it's built under, like in a basement or an addition to, it's built as a single-family home with a fire separation barrier, complete barrier separating the two structures, the two units, the two homes. An in-law apartment, and it also requires two means of egress. The electricity has to be separated out. The fire alarm devices would have to be separated out. So there's a substantial amount of work that's involved when you create an ADU, either next to attached to your existing single-family home, or like if somebody wants to build it in the basement. Now, an in-law apartment doesn't have to go through any of that. And also, it being a single-family home, you are going to be taxed for having two single-family homes on your property. An ADU, again, is considered a single-family home, so you would be taxed for two homes. So an in-law apartment is, you could do it in the basement, or you could build an addition on the side of your house, attached to it, side or rear or wherever on top. And it only needs one means of egress. You don't have to separate out the fire alarm devices, the electrical systems, the heating systems, the gas, if you had gas, or anything else. And it's just, it can be approved. There's two ways it can be approved. It's very similar to what we had before. One way is if it satisfies the building officials' requirements that it remain, you still have the look and the feel of a single-family home. You could grant them approval to build it without having to go for any special conditions or go to the zoning board of appeals for a special permit. If they wanted to build it and it was attached or in the basement and they wanted to do something to create it that it did not continue to look like a single-family home, then they would go to the zoning board of appeals for special permit. But still, you would get away with not having to go through all of the expense and costs of that you would with an ADU, accessory dwelling unit.
So Doug, when you talk about, when you use the term, when it looks like, you don't mean like how what the physical appearance is, like, or.
Yeah,
Like, if it's in a basement, right, it wouldn't have a physical appearance, right?
from the outside.
Yeah.
You're not, what you're not doing is you're not creating a two-family. You're not turning that single-family home into a two-family. You're turning it, this is for people, you have an elderly parent, you have a child, you have somebody that wants to, or needs help, or is growing older, and they want to, you want to help take care of them. So you could easily do that with the in-law apartment. But if you were to do it as an ADU, it's substantially more expensive, and it's a lot more work.
So when you're talking about the open access, like the open access, there's no door between the primary dwelling unit and the in-law apartment. And the closed access, there is a door separating the primary unit from the in-law apartment. But those two units would still share like means of egress.
Yes.
It just means that there's a door, but not a door that's meant to keep the other one out necessarily, right? Like.
Yes, I mean, we've had some situations in town in the past where, somebody's mother wanted to, or father wanted to, didn't want to live alone in the big house anymore, wanted to sell the house, and they wanted to move in. They had one of the children that said, sure, well, we have a big house, and we can do either an addition or we can do a basement remodel. And they don't want, they still want to feel that they have their own space, so they want to have a door that they could lock on their side, they wanted to be able to have their own space that people were coming and going. And so that's the closed access unit. And these are both what we had. This in-law apartment very closely mirrors what we used to have before it was deleted accidentally when the town voted for the ADU. So we're not, Lisa and I had met, and Lisa drew this up Lisa and I worked on it, and it's to keep it as similar as possible with what we already had that unfortunately we lost.
Does the closed access unit with the door go to the zoning board of appeals because it gets a little greater scrutiny because it is separating the units more? Is that why that one?
Yeah, if it's an interior remodel, like the basement, or if they have a second floor remodel, and they created a unit up there or down in the basement, and they want to have a door and nobody's there, nobody's going to know, it's not a big deal. Personally, as a building commissioner, I'm more apt to approve that. It's typically when you build an addition and you want to lock yourself into your own space. And then that's when, we would probably have them go for a special permit. And to be honest with you, I think I've sent maybe one or two in the 5 years or so that I've been in town, and the zoning board of appeals they're not the type, they're not a group that would turn it down. Because listen, I'm 68 and I keep threatening my daughters that we're gonna sell the house and we're gonna move in with one of them. They're like, we'll shoot you first. But we all have elderly parents and we have family, and it's a good thing. And this is the easiest way that we can help the public and the townspeople that need this type of help.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that, I didn't realize either at the time when we were working on the ADU that we were getting rid of something that was needed. And I think a little bit of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, like the history of this in my practice in single-family homes was that, towns often had regulations about if you have a rental unit, right, in your home, they had regulations on that. And typically what made it potentially a rental unit was if you had not only a kitchen, but an oven. It's the oven. If you had an oven, a second oven in the unit, it was the little red lights that went off, that could be a rental. Not a microwave, not a sink. You can have lots of sinks or refrigerators. But if you had an oven, it kind of signified 2 dwelling units, right? But now, with homes, there's lots of homes that have a kitchen in the basement and a second oven, or, it's not, and you and I, Doug, talked about this several years ago, before the ADU state thing came up about what makes, where's that line between what's an ADU, and you had told me it's not the oven anymore, it's really the 2 means of egress. Like, if you have a 2 means of egress and it looks like it could be a separate unit, then maybe it is a separate unit, right? So that's a little bit of history from my perspective about what makes this, what's an ADU and what's like an in-law apartment, someone who's a part of your home, kind of thing.
Yeah, so the other thing I want to tell you is that they can't rent it.
I'm sorry, is what?
The other thing about the in-law apartment, the big difference, is that you can't rent the in-law apartment.
Right, it's not meant to be rented, right?
Yeah, well, you want to rent it to your child. That's fine, but it can't be rented, you can't go in Verbo or some online rental place and rent it out to strangers.
Right.
If you had to go for a special permit, that would end up being recorded. And when you build an in-law apartment, the building permit would specifically say it's an in-law apartment on it. So if you caught somebody, people spend a lot of money for their homes in Ashland. Mm-hmm. And if you get somebody that does to have an in-law apartment and then you start renting it out and the neighbor's complaining, you have a case, the building official in the town, has a case to say to the people, listen, we allowed this in-law apartment to be here, but you can't rent it out. It's just a design. It's not safe to have renters in here. It's not set up for life safety situations.
Right.
If there's a fire or, anything that would happen. An in-law apartment gets its own separate address so that the fire department, the police department know where to go. That's another big difference. And the in-law apartment is just part of the main house. And so you know who is living in your house with you, and it's a safety issue,
Right.
situation.
Right. Angel, did you have a question?
I guess my question was really, how do you police the difference between the two? Because there's plenty of cases of in-laws apartments suddenly becoming rental units. So, and they don't have the safety, so, I mean, I understand the need of them, but I guess that was my question. How do you police that difference?
Doug, do you have any?
Oh, sure. Yeah, believe it or not, I get a lot of phone calls from the neighbors. So we get phone calls about cars parked on the lawn, parties. We had a situation where somebody was trying to rent out their pool, and the neighbors were losing their minds. So we're not the police, but if we get complaints, we answer those complaints. And what we do is we look up the permits and see what they were allowed to build and what they weren't allowed to build. And then we would go after the homeowner of the property and say, hey, what's going on here? You're not allowed to have multiple units in this. It's a single family home location. So that's basically how we, police these situations.
Yeah, so you can't know what's going on inside everyone's home, but you can't advertise it as a rental. And as things happen, they tend to reveal themselves, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it all ends up coming to the building official.
Yeah, so my take on this, obviously, is I think there's a need in it. Like I said, Doug explained this to me a year ago about this, and we're like, well, town meeting is like tomorrow, so we're just gonna have to go ahead and then take care of this afterward. But I do have, like, as we go through this, and I know, and it may not all be in one session here, but I wanted to go through some things with the board, and Doug can stay on or not stay on, Doug, as you wish. I really wanted to get your explanation and your take on things, obviously.
Sure.
But I think there's things that I want to go through, and I think will be another pass at this to get it into the same language as the new accessory dwelling unit, so that really they work together closely and one can see the differences between the two. Does anyone have any general questions, though, before we go through it a little more specifically, or questions for Doug specifically, or?
Not necessarily for Doug, but I'm curious, how does this come into our housing production plan? How is that not accounted for at all as a one-family?
It's included in whatever your single-family unit is. It's not an additional unit. It's the same way it doesn't update your, an in-law, I don't believe, Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe it needs an update to your septic system if it's existing.
No, you don't have to do any updates to anything unless, well, if you're on a septic system, if you're on town water and sewer, you're fine. But, if you have a septic system, it's only designed for a certain number of rooms, and you're adding rooms to it, then that may be a situation where they may have to go meet with the Board of Health and have somebody figure out what they need to do to enlarge their septic system.
Yeah, but for the most part, an ADU would be on the same water, the same sewer, the same electric as as the main house, because it is just
The-
one house.
in-law, yeah.
Yeah, the in-law, sorry.
Oh,
I
you
said-
mean the in-law,
The
yes.
in-law, yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah, yes, yeah. It would be, that would not, probably not, 99% sure it would not count in in your housing. But to be honest with you, we had quite a run of in-law apartments a few years ago, but that has slowed down. And I think when the economy and people start building, the construction slowed down quite a bit. That I've been hearing from all the departments, all the other towns. And I think it's going to pick up. We do have an aging population, and you know, some people aren't lucky enough to have a couple $100,000 to $200,000 to $300,000 to build an ADU, whereas you can spend 80 grand and build a in-law apartment.
So,
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
I know it's
please.
Residential, so, like, I know what an in-law apartment is. Is there anything that says that I just don't, I want to refinish my basement, I'm gonna add this great room with a kitchenette and 2 bedrooms and not call it an in-law apartment?
What would happen is the permit would say the permit would say on it, this is not an in-law apartment. And if there were issues, you could get into some real serious problems. Like with your insurance company, if you ever had a fire, somebody was found living in there.
But it would be family anyways, right?
I think your question,
Doesn't really matter who would be there. If somebody were injured, and the fire department had to come there, the insurance company had to come there. One of the places that the insurance companies go to is the building department to see what we have on file.
I think the question is, so if you came, if someone put in an application of a basement and they put in a bedroom and a bathroom and there's a kitchenette, and you're like, well, it's just for us, right? We're not even having grandma live there or anything. I think the difference is that Doug's could potentially look at that unit and say, hey, it looks like an ADU, right? And so
An in-law apartment.
right, so it looks like an ADU, so in order to say, no, it's not an ADU, it's actually an in-law apartment,
Okay.
and that's allowed. It is like 2 homes in one, but it's not this other version.
I mean, like, back to your point, I could have 2 kitchens in my house if I wanted to.
Right,
So,
right.
and it's not an in-law. So I guess that's my question, like, is it a big deal either way?
I think it's the way it will be permitted from egress point of view, right? If it is part of a renovation of another floor, it will be judged from permitting point of view, how many egress you have and things like that. So it's not labeled as in-laws, but from egress point of view, it will be looked at it as a big picture. Doug, correct me if my understanding is wrong, but because now you will have that floor plus the main floor kind of looked at as a big picture and looked at egress as a holistic versus
Correct.
just the renovation. So that
Correct.
may be very different than if it was just an in-law apartment in this case, for example. The egress rules will be very different than what you would if you had renovated or expanded your space. Does that
Yes,
make
that's
sense?
that's correct. That's correct. You know, it also comes down to, do you want to take the chance? You want to, you know, like was mentioned that I'm going to finish off my basement. I'm going to put a little, I want to put a little kitchenette in there. You know, and then you finish it, and then you you have somebody illegally wire up a stove, put a full-size refrigerator in there, you know, instead of a mini fridge, and things like that. You know, you want to take a chance on your biggest investment, something happening, go for it. Go at it. No skin off our back. But I find that most people want to do things legally. They don't want issues, they don't want to worry about anything. And those, you know, you have an elderly person or a child with disability, and you're creating a space in your basement for them to live. And, you know, you want to be safe, you want them to be safe, and you want it to be done correctly. And that's the reason why, to be honest with you, that's the reason why we're bringing forward this in-law apartment to put it back into the zoning ordinances.
So I think if I may, Angel, so right now, anybody who wants to do any addition, they should by law come to the building department, pull a building permit. At this point, our building commissioner would look at this, look at that plan, and if he felt at this time that that's an additional living space, he would say you have to apply for an ADU. As our bylaws are written right now, there is no provision for him to allow an in-law apartment by law.
Right.
So right now, currently, by law, you cannot build an in-law apartment. You have to either have a single-family home or an ADU. By approving this provision, allows the building commissioner to use their responsibility to make the determination that this is in fact an in-law and not an ADU based on the information the applicant provided them. This is all something that's determined interior by the building department. So they're the ones that determine if it's a single-family home, if it's an in-law, if it's an ADU. And this bylaw gives him the ability to grant that as an in-law versus an ADU based on who's living there and how it will be used.
Right, I think my question was, does the current code basically
Doesn't allow for an in-law.
I have a living space in my basement with a bathroom.
Right.
I have a refrigerator down there. I'm gonna put a kitchenette. Like, there's nothing in the code, like if I applied for a permit to put this kitchenette, that would say I couldn't do that.
No, I think it's just
So is there
yeah.
anything that sort of restricts you from doing it? Because I feel like
There
if
is
it's
a
all
there is a
family-
cusp that it becomes a unit. I don't know if it's a kitchenette or a bedroom.
I think it's just that, like in that case, it's obviously going to be, you know, not an apartment, right? But I think you get to this point where it's like, well, it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. I think you got an ADU there.
So if I
not,
went to
you
the
know.
building department with my plan and I had this kitchenette in there, they would then say,
Yes, it's the building
you're
department's
gonna need to
determination.
substantially separate this with
Yes.
fire because we think it's an ADU, or
Exactly.
then that's when it would get
Exactly.
bounced.
It's kind of like the
That's
conversation.
what I'm like, right
Yes,
now,
it's
there's
the
nothing
building
that
commissioner's
prevents you
purview.
from putting an addition that allows your mother to move in.
It's kind of like the same thing with like a bedroom. Like, what makes a bedroom a bedroom? You know,
Right.
it's like, it's like, well, it's not a bedroom, it's an office, right? And so the big determination there became the closet, right? If it doesn't have a closet, it's an office, you know, and then as soon as it's all tied up, you get someone in there and you put in a
Right,
closet,
you
right?
put in-
So it's those type of things, like, I think when it looks like something, and this gives Doug the opportunity to say, it's not an ADU, I can approve it myself
Okay.
and say that it's not.
Okay.
I think that's the line he's trying to
Okay,
make.
I understand.
But anyway, yeah, kind of tricky concept. But I do have things, unless people have more questions specifically for Doug, I wanted to go through some other things. And just so you know, and I'm thinking now that maybe these, you know, for anyone actually out there in the audience and for those at the table, all of our other 3 things got asked for continuances. So, yeah, so I'm not sure.
All the public hearings will be
Right,
continued.
and so now I'm not sure that everyone got that information with everything flying back and forth. But it just meant that the schedule became manageable instead of impossible, so.
I don't think I didn't see that message about continuance, but I was curious. I don't see any documentation related to anything that we spoke in last 2 hours in this file. Am I missing where these are? There's
Oh,
no
well,
agenda, there is nothing
I
here.
think so when we met with Tricia this week, I think there was a miscommunication between Tricia and Melissa. So we were trying to reduce the amount of paper being printed, and so we said just print 2 copies of everything. So instead of putting everything in the binders, Melissa just put 2 copies of everything in the center of the table for
Okay.
everybody to have. So we
Yes,
will
sorry.
continue to update
I see
the
there are some
the binders, but we are trying to do our best to get
I was just curious, like,
laptops
what did
or-
I miss? I saw a message about bring your laptops and iPads, but I did not realize we were not gonna get copies. So I'm looking at it on my phone, but it's not a productive way of doing it.
Apologize, yeah, we're
No.
trying to, well, why don't we go a little further with this, and then we'll wrap this up. There are agendas in here, and there's a copy of the bylaws under that map. And then they're in the folder. We're trying to find that balance between this pile of paperwork and putting things online, and obviously we're caught in no man's land or in between in the gray area. And we will work it out, so.
I can use my.
Please keep forwarding or, saying what is not working so that we can eventually get this to work smoothly. Okay. So, but I do want to talk about some other things in this bylaw, because I think that the language needs to be massaged a bit so that it's super clear. And that's been my goal for the past several, years now, as we start to redo some of these bylaws, is how do we make them as clear as possible? And it's no easy task, given that a lot of the bylaws is a bit of a mess. So, if we go to, 8.1 is the purpose, 8.2 was about the open access units and the closed access units, and I think I'll be looking at that text a little bit more. But if I look at, let's look at 7.8.3, use limitations. It says the owner of record shall be an occupier of the structure, which includes the in-law apartment. So that differs from an ADU, because in an ADU, both units can be owned by someone else who owns the property, and they can both be rented out, right, in an ADU. The in-law apartment, the owner has to be in the main house, and the relative has to be in the in-law apartment. So, but it also says, there shall be no other living unit on the lot. And I don't think we can say that. I think that house with an in-law apartment has to be allowed to also have an ADU. Because by state law, every lot that is in a residential district can have an ADU. And if this is not an ADU, if an in-law apartment is not an ADU, then this lot can have one too. You know what I mean? So it can have a rental and it can have grandma living with you.
So what I'm doing is I'm going to outline the sections, and I'll meet with Lisa Mead and
Yeah, and
have
Doug-
discussions with her about that.
Yeah, and Doug, we can go through this together too. These are just things that I'm like, kind of pulling out. Does anyone have any, do you think I'm right about that? I think I'm right about that.
Yeah, and that in turn has that other section of disposal of sewage. How does that work if it is?
Yeah, so I think 7.8.4 disposal of sewage, I don't think we even need. That's like building code, right? You have to get rid of your sewage. It's part of the main house, so why would we need to distinguish it as a separate
Because
unit?
adding a bedroom unit does impact your sewer. So if you have a 4-bedroom house versus a 5-bedroom house,
But
you have to
that's-
update your septic system, so.
But only in that case, so that's always true no matter, if I'm just adding a bedroom and not an in-law apartment, just a single bedroom, I still have to check if I have a septic system, I still have to check.
I don't think it hurts to leave it in. I don't think it hurts anything, but I would, if you want to ask Lisa why she wants it in, I'm sure she put it in for protection.
I don't think she put it in, I think it was left over from the previous version that we had for years. So I think it has just been in there and wasn't re-questioned.
And if you add an ADU, would that whole
Yeah.
system, if it was a septic tank on that, and if you have an ADU as well added, now you're increase the capacity of that particular lot.
And more, yeah.
Right,
That's all separated out.
yeah.
What Doug talked about before, you have to separate egresses, electrical, plumbing.
For
It's an
ADU,
entirely new
for
dwelling.
ADU, yeah,
That's what it
correct.
is.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
If you had to do a new septic system, for all that, it would probably take up most of your backyard.
Yeah.
It's all gonna disappear. I think it's in there just to, like some things, like in the building code, in state ordinances and things like that. Some things to put in there just be able to catch everything. Because you never, not everybody's not devious. We get some crazy people to come in with some crazy ideas and well, it doesn't say anything that I have to do anything. I should be fine. And then, things start to go sideways. So deleting every little thing, probably not the best way to go. Not gonna hurt anything. 90% of what we have in Ashland is town sewer. It's a small percentage in the outer banks of the town that they have septic. But it's to just catch the loose ends, so somebody that's in the outer ends that wants to do something, that it's there. Everybody knows this is how it's gonna be.
Yeah,
and
I'm
that's
just,
it.
and then we can go through some of these things later. I'm just kind of bringing up the questions about how do we streamline this bylaw to be exactly what it needs, and not contain, the extra stuff that we had when the in-law apartment and the ADU were together, right? Instead of
Yep.
separated into two
Sure.
things.
Yep.
Tricia, if I might, for example, I have a single-family home, and then if I were to add additional restrooms in the building, I have a limitation of how many I can add. I don't know how that count is derived. Doug, you may know it better, but that particular passage, that 7.8.4 actually makes sure that that particular area can accommodate another 2 restrooms, whether it's in the
Correct.
basement or not. I'm not sure how that calculation is done today, but if I have a 4-bed house, I have 3 restrooms, I can only go add another 1 or 2, depending on, I'm guessing, the plumbing lines. I don't know how that logic is, but there's a limitation of how many restrooms I can add in my building.
Yes, correct.
It is. Currently,
it's
that's how
based
it is.
It's based upon the size of your septic system.
So adding that, and if you're having an in-law apartment, you have to probably make sure that that particular building can accommodate another 2 restrooms on that level.
Yeah, but size of, the size of the septic system is typically determined, in my experience, either by the number of bedrooms, or I won't say most, a lot of communities are going to a room count, which
Right.
doesn't include bathrooms, because of the whole thing about it's an office, it's a bedroom. Well, call it whatever you want. You're gonna count a number of rooms and you divide by like 4 or something like that. And that gives you your amount of bedrooms. Like some communities are going
Last time I
to.
did a septic, it was bedrooms, and then there was a max, so 3 bedrooms, 8 rooms total.
Yeah,
I think
something,
that's kind of how
right,
it
so
was
communities
worded.
are
So I
going,
could have 3 bedrooms, I could have 27 bathrooms, and
Right,
3 bedrooms.
exactly.
yeah, because it's about the amount of people, not about the amount of plumbing,
Yes,
so.
exactly. So going back to that paragraph, does that help retaining that? Because it asks you to check.
I think the paragraph probably is more for, I'm reading this for the first time, I want an in-law apartment. It never occurred to me because, I flush my toilets, it goes away. It never occurred to me that I may have to change something of that. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I've added 2 bedrooms, that could change something with so
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing. And I read it as more someone who's trying to do this knowing nothing about ADUs. They never looked up ADUs, they don't know what that means. This is the first time
It's
they're
an
seeing
indirect
it.
way of, it's a checklist of some
Yeah.
sort.
Well, I could see that, so I could look at it in that capacity.
It may be able to be simplified to just
Yeah,
check with the Board of Health on sewer requirements.
we can look at that, and as far as about how it's described as kind of a check, because like I said, if you add, I'm just adding a master suite, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and a closet, you have to think about the exact same questions as putting on an ADU. So that's why it's like, and that's just under the building code. There's nothing special about it, right? So that's what I'm trying to distinguish, that, that really there's nothing special about this unit. So.
Let me throw a twist here. How are we handling those properties that have campers?
We'll have to get to that another time.
Is that,
That's a whole zoning,
totally
that's a
different
whole
conversation for a
different
different
ballgame.
sorry, Doug.
We'll put
Let's
a
not
pin
go
in
down
that.
that road.
Yeah, okay, I guess I'll keep quiet.
Okay, another question here, and this is on the second page, 7.8.7, the area limitation. In the ADU regulations, this is from the state, right? That the size of
900.
What's that?
900 square feet.
Yeah, 900 square feet, but it's, is not larger than 1/2 the gross floor area of the principal dwelling, or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller, right? So you take half your house, or 900 square feet, whichever one is smaller, that's the one you get to do. In the in-law apartment, the way it is now, and again, this is left over from what we had, it's 25%, which makes sense because it's not an ADU, it's an in-law suite. 25% of the floor area, 800 square feet, or whichever is larger.
Correct.
Right, so that means if I have a 10,000 square foot house, I can have a 2,500 square foot in-law apartment. And is
Have at
that,
it, baby.
what?
Have at it.
And is
Have
that
at
what we
it,
want
baby.
to, is that what we want to say?
Well, I'll be honest with you, the neighborhoods where the bigger homes are located, their basements are about 1,000 square feet. But they take out, if you take out for the mechanical rooms and other areas that they're not going to use, it's 800 square feet is typically, in the town of Ashland, is typically the size of the in-law apartments that I've seen.
Yeah.
Again, typically, these are people, they're elderly people, they don't want to take care and maintain, clean a big space. Kids, you got grown kids or teenagers that you don't want to give them any more space because they're just going to trash more space.
Yeah, so my question is, why wouldn't we just, because I did some little diagrams for myself of a small house of 1,000 square feet and a big house of 10,000 square feet. And what's 25% and how does that relate to 800, right? And my conclusion kind of is, maybe it's just about saying, no matter how big your house is, an in-law's apartment is 800 square feet.
That's fine.
At maximum.
I have
Because
no problem.
if you have a small house, say you have 1,000 square foot house, 250 square feet is going to give you a bedroom, right? Not, maybe a bedroom and a bathroom, but it's not going to give you an apartment, maybe in New York City. Or if you're a good designer. Or a very good design. But a 10,000 square foot house is going to give you a way bigger, it's going to give you a whole house attached to your house as an ADU.
Fortunately, we don't have any 10,000 square foot homes in Ashland.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, is this something where we just make it simple? If you're actually putting in a house for an adult child or a parent, can it just be a number?
A maximum of 800 square feet?
Yeah, and that could be the number, I'm saying.
Whatever.
Yeah, but is that the?
Should we have the same?
Yeah.
Should we have the same language as we had in ADU about the 900 plus the principal, what are the principal home and percentage versus, or should we differentiate so that we know, as in commissioner, when he walks in and he knows that the square footage is exactly as ADU, would that create problems?
I think that we should differentiate between the two uses. You know, the ADU is a specific size because, actually, to be honest with you, I'm not sure where the state came up with it, but, you know, when you want to build a single-family ADU, I've just built 2 apartments that side by side. It was two-family. And they were going to be rented by apartments. And they were each 900 square feet. You could make 2 12 by 12 bedrooms in them, or you could build one nice big 15 by 15 bedroom in them. And I think that that's probably where, because the 2 bedrooms is maxed out, you know, you can't, there's not a lot of room left over. But I think in an in-law situation, I think that 800 square feet is probably 90% of the town. It's probably about maximum of what you can fit in there. And I think it would be good, a wise thing to consider just keeping the 2 separated square footages.
So I agree with you completely. The way this is written, anyone can have 800 anyways, so you might as well just take out the percentage, choose that square footage, and that's your maximum.
Yeah, I mean,
You know, if you're in a smaller house, you're gonna likely upgrade to that anyways, so you might as well just say that that's sort of the maximum, and that prevents, you know, a larger house from making a 4-bedroom apartment attached to it.
right, a 4-bedroom ADU, you know, kind of thing, or 4-bedroom in-law suite.
Right.
Yeah, which defeats the purpose, I think. It's really a 2-family house at that point. So,
Is 800 the right number? Do everybody feel that's the right, not 1,000?
I actually recently, working with Doug, before our ADU law was changed, I did an ADU in Ashland right at 800 square feet, you know, and what it, you know, it was for a grandma. And it basically takes care of a one-bedroom, bath, kitchenette, living, dining. It's a little apartment, and 800 works. With 900, I think the difference is with the state, I'm working on one now that I can put in a 2nd bedroom, you know, so that you have an ADU that could have an office, or it could have parents and a child in an ADU. And I think that's the difference between 800 and 900. Not saying one is better, but if we want it to be.
Gets you an additional 10 by 10 room.
That's what it gets you, yeah. So.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
So the 800 might be the right spot.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, if it doesn't work, we obviously can review it if
Yeah.
things come up. But sounds like from square footage approximately, if you look at a living, dining, kitchen, I think it sounds like the right number.
So what is the town missing out on a tax base on these property types?
Well, I'm not going to speak for Don, the assessor, but they'll be charged the tax, but they're not going to be taxed as it would be a single-family home. So I don't know, what's the average single-family home tax? What, $8,000? Between 7,000 and 8,000 in Ashland?
I'm not sure.
13,000?
So, yeah, well, let's just say $7,000. So, you know, you add a whole new single-family home, an ADU in your backyard, you're gonna get taxed substantially. May not be $7,000, but you're gonna be taxed substantially because it's a single-family home. If it's an in-law apartment, you're gonna be taxed for however taxed, for a bedroom and a kitchen, with what, you know, an extra $500 to $1,000. So there's this big difference, because when the ADUs came through, I went down and talked to Dawn, who's our assessor, and I said, how are you gonna deal with the these ADUs, because the state wants them to be a considered a single-family home. And he said, I'm going to tax them like a single-family home. And then, when he gets copies of our permits, he'll be notified that somebody's building an in-law apartment. It's not the same tax rate as a single-family home. Substantially less than that.
Yeah, and
So there's still, the town's still going to get its chunk of the pie, but it's not going to be as great as it would be if it were an ADU.
Also, I think the point is that as we just saw in the other presentation for the housing production plan, as the population of Ashland ages, that people can be, family members can be accommodated within a family's home, and that frees up, another home for another family versus thinking about the taxes, on that home. It's going to go up anyway just because of the assessed value, right? So, but the last thing I wanted to cover in here, and there's lots of small points, but is the provision for parking. The ADU, if it's not within a half a mile, I think, of a train station, the ADU has to provide one off-street parking space. Does an in-law apartment need a mandatory off-street parking space?
And an accessible parking space, I guess.
Yeah, how do we think of, is that the same thing?
Well, you can't park on the streets, like in the wintertime. The people in an in-law apartment are more permanent because they're a family member than they are than an ADU, which could be a family member, but the people that have talked to me, they want to rent them out, and so they're more transient. The people in the ADUs are more transient. The idea for an in-law apartment and why some of the language is in there is we want the single-family home neighborhood to stay looking like a single-family home neighborhood. And if you don't, and typically you're only talking one new vehicle, or if there's husband and wife. I know I've done a couple last year, or they were, before the ADU thing came in, they were a husband and wife that were elderly, and they moved in. Their children built an addition on the side, and they had a huge garage, and they had a big driveway, and they had room for the vehicles. You don't want to force people to park on the grass, or try to force them to park out in the street, because then the neighbors get all up in arms, and they don't like that, because we do get complaints, even though it's a police issue. My department's always the first place that people call.
Right,
So I think that that the parking is a good thing. I think it's the good thing for the town.
So we should keep an off-street parking spot?
I mean, where else is somebody going to park other than?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just looking at it differently than an ADU, that you might have someone living in your home that doesn't drive, or that you want to accommodate someone that doesn't drive. This might be part of the reason why you want them in your home, but you don't have a room for another parking space, or is that something that can be?
So
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in.
Okay.
I mean, I think whatever the majority position of the board is fine with me. I, for one, think for the in-law apartments, we can be more flexible and not require it. Because I think the whole concept is our elders who are probably not driving anymore. I think that's the vision here. So I, for one, would not require it. and would not make it burdensome. But if the rest of the board wants to go the other way, that's fine with me. I apologize, I have to step away. Tricia is aware, but I hope, I know the rest of these are continued, but I do trust the majority of the board on this one point, which sounds like the last point.
All right, thanks, Anna.
All right, thanks, everybody.
I think the way it's written right there, it's not saying you have to have an extra parking space. It's saying you have to have parking that is appropriate for the dwellers. So it's kind of leaving it open-ended. If you know your mother's moving in there and she doesn't drive and you don't have a spot in your driveway, you don't need a spot in your
No,
driveway.
you're kind of right there. It doesn't
It's not saying
actually.
you have to have a spot. It's saying you have to be able to accommodate the dwellers.
And it is still under review just by the building inspector.
Yeah.
Does that mean by this rule that the homeowner can make some adaptations to the yard to allow?
Well, if you had
Put
to
gravel.
increase your driveway or something,
Because I
I'm
think this-
sure, but I think it leaves it open that if that person doesn't drive, you don't have to do it. If they do drive and they live with you, they're probably already parking somewhere, honestly.
Right.
So that, and if they're moving in and they need a car spot, then you would have to decide, are we parking tandem? And that's okay with us.
I could be wrong, but isn't there some provision in town that you're not allowed to have, not a rotary, but in and out access with your driveway?
It depends on where you are. If you can have 2 curb cuts on your driveway, it depends on the road. And they would need a curb cut permit depending on the roadway from DPW. But it could also just be a widening of the driveway
Yeah,
or
well-
something of that nature.
Well,
or
nothing-
extension.
Yeah, I mean, nothing here negates the other rules set up in the bylaws.
Right.
Right, so you'd have to go back and make sure all the other bylaws that you're, whatever they talk about, curb cuts or
Setbacks
lot
and
coverage,
everything, yeah.
setbacks, right, all those have to be maintained as well. You don't, it doesn't give you a pass, so. Okay, I just want a kind of a general feeling of the board. Obviously, this isn't the only time we'll be discussing this, but I wanted to get kind of general feedback of the board of the things that I was picking out of this, because I think it is different. We're making this different than the ADU, and so how is it different, right? How are these two things different? So, so I think we're probably, taking between Doug and I and Lisa and Jasmine, we'll take another pastors. Oh, sorry, Kate.
So I'm
I
going to
didn't-
say,
yeah, public
hopefully,
comment,
it's
open.
in the public hearing. So I really think we have to relook at the basic concept I got from Doug, and that kind of makes sense. But when you're calling it in-law, you're dealing with like traditional family only and immediate family. And like the state law has a definition of that. And that doesn't meet the intent that we're saying of like, you could have your disabled cousin, right? And your cousin of a cousin, but you still think you can accommodate them, right? So I
Is there a
think,
different name that's out there right now that people are calling
well,
this?
when you look up in-law, right, so everybody defaults to ADU in Massachusetts. Like I've seen a bunch of legal, that's when I first saw this, I was like, what are we trying to do? And I kind of get what Doug's talking about, but I think, yeah, so I don't know. I looked up, I am very much against that traditional family only and immediate family. And I think we have to do better than that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's not intended to be exclusive. It's just the name that's always been used, and I don't think
But
necessarily-
because it goes back to state law, right, of definition of that,
Yeah, well,
too.
we can
Yeah.
look at what we want to, because this isn't a state law. We can look at
Correct.
what we want to call it and to be appropriate for what we're
And I
intending.
think, I mean, some of the stuff I don't like about it, and again, the concept I can get my head around, but like, it's like, this is government intrusion of like a marriage license, a birth certificate, like how are they related, but, all that stuff. So that gets a little messy too, right?
Are we still talking about
Yeah,
the name in-law apartment?
I mean, of who can be there.
Yeah, I think
So
we
it's not
agree.
just the name, it's who can be there, that has to be defined, if that's the direction, right? It's related to that, but yes, it's, how are you gonna determine who can be there?
Okay, I don't think we call out exactly who can be there. I understand what the name implies, but we've already just said that we should look at reinvestigating that name, that name isn't appropriate for what we're intending.
So you're saying we're not intending to make a limit on who is there, what relationship?
Maybe we
If-
should ask Doug while he's still. Doug, is there a differential in in-laws?
I mean, it's family members. I apologize because I was saying parents and
Yeah.
children and things like that, because that's typically who I see using these, they're getting and having these built. But, family members. I mean, you got a cousin, I'm certainly not, there isn't a building inspector alive that's got the time to, I want to see birth certificates of who's going to stay here. We typically would say that, we look at it and say, gee, somebody's dumping $80,000 to $100,000 into their basement or into an addition on the side. It's got to be some kind of a family member. And typically the people that own the home will tell us. They tell us, oh, my parents have, they're getting older, and I haven't had one of these built that the people that own the home in town that want to add an in-law apartment don't tell me the life story about why this person or this couple are gonna move into their house and they're spending all this time and money to do this work. So this isn't a situation where I'm concerned. The only concern I would be is if if you're trying to rent it to an outside person that you don't know who they are, never met them before, and you're trying to make a profit on it.
So I guess to let's say my best friend's in a car accident.
Exactly.
She has no family.
Right.
I want her to come live with
Exactly.
me.
Yeah.
I'm not planning to rent to her because she's my best friend and I'm just taking care of her because she has no one else. Would that be allowed under an in-law situation? Or does that kick it to an ADU? I guess is the
No,
question.
I'll be honest with you, I don't ask, so.
Well, I think in
But
terms,
I wouldn't have an issue with it.
yeah, no,
I'm not gonna have an issue with it. I mean,
yeah, I think in terms of making it clear, it's just really, it is just redefining this. I think we're all in agreement that it's not about blood family, it's about people who feel like family because they have access to the whole rest of your house. There's no locked door. So it's people that feel like family, and so we will find the correct term to use for that. So, do you have something else, Kate?
I do, several. So I think just hearing this conversation, I think this absolutely needs to have some grid of like what differentiates I don't know what we're gonna call it, hopefully not in-law, but maybe in-law if it's defined, not an ADU, because I think that it feels like it could be arbitrary and then not, because I'm under the impression that an ADU can be in your single-family house. It obviously has to meet the building code and thing. And then you said tonight it can't, and I'm not sure I agree with that,
You
but-
know, I don't think we said it can't. It can be embedded into the house. That's a
Yeah.
part of the ADU
Yeah.
bylaw. But it requires the same kind of separation
Yeah.
as if it's a two-family
Yeah.
house, right? That, according to the building code.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it different.
And that might be the one thing, but I think there might be a couple things, a little grid to make it clear, like very clear. That's what we're trying to do, is make our
Yeah.
bylaws clear.
Yeah.
On 7.8.3, it says no boarders or lodgers shall be allowed in either dwelling unit. So let's say I have your scenario, my friend that doesn't have friends, and I have the financial wherewithal to have the friend come, but you want it to be nice, so it has a little separation. But then I'm going to travel the world, because I won the lottery, and I'm gonna rent my part of the house. So why can't I? While my friend is in the in-law part of the house.
that's a legal discussion I'd have to take up with Lisa.
Yeah, that's a little tricky. Like because now you have two strangers now, that now you have it's not a family anymore. It's it's a paid tenant and a family.
Well, okay, but like, by like,
Because
we're in the US and we want property rights and I get my house and I get to rent it. So like, I
well,
don't know that you can legally
the
do
whole
that.
house because the in-law
Okay.
unit is a part of the house. That's what we're saying. It's not a separate unit. It's part of the house.
But the way that's written doesn't cover what you're saying then.
Well, the border or lodger, yeah, I mean,
But I understand what you're saying, but what you said is not how that's written.
well, I'm not sure how it's written, but it's that there's no one that's paying rent to someone else, right? So you can rent out your whole house,
Yeah.
but then I don't think you can separate out the two pieces. Because it's one piece. It's one, not two. In this, there's one dwelling.
Yep.
You can either rent out the dwelling or you cannot, but you can't rent out half a dwelling. So.
Okay, and I think we talked about that, no other living unit, I think you have to have an ADU allowed by the law. The ingress, egress, and attic provision, I think some of those, it says a building inspector, but I think it should be like, shouldn't that be like building code, so we have things to line up to?
Yeah, I was skipping over that one because I don't think this needs to go late into the night.
Yeah.
But I think, again, that's another one that might be really covered in the building code and that we might not need for this single family dwelling, which is what we're talking about.
The 7.8.8, are we asking like too much? Like you have to do your floor plan, but then show like 200 feet around the neighborhood? Like,
Again, this is left over from when this was the in-law apartment / ADU bylaw. And so
Yeah.
it made sense at that time, and so requiring floor plans that are different than what's required for a normal building permit, obviously, it probably isn't needed in there.
the parking, I heard lots of conversation, which is good. We say you don't park in the street, but street parking's allowed, right, except the winter sort of stuff. So I feel like it shouldn't be too kind of onerous on that. Anyway, it sounds like there'll be another round, but those are my comments.
Yeah, there'll be another round. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Like I said, this is just kind of round one on this. I'm glad we finally got to tackle it because it's an important bylaw and we'll put it on, we want to get it on the docket for the spring. But there'll be a big revision and then we'll look at it again. Probably, I don't know about, we'll have it on for the 22nd in case everything else drops off again.
How does our bylaw compare to other towns near us?
It's very similar to have an in-law and an ADU bylaw
It is.
separate because it is a differential that only happens within the building department. But if you do not have it separated in your in your zoning bylaw, the building commissioner cannot grant an in-law apartment if you don't expressly allow it.
Yeah, and our ADU bylaw was modified from language that is provided by the state as a draft. You don't have to use it, but we started with the base, we looked at some other things, we put in some of our own things, but, so our bylaw, our ADU bylaw, is related to everyone else's, but it's kind of uniquely
When
our
did
own.
this ADU law start to manifest itself? What year did that?
About a year ago. About a year ago, that it became, I want to say February, that it became state law.
So probably preceded by a year or two before that?
That they started to talk about
Yeah,
it?
because nothing happens overnight in
Well, it was,
government anyway.
it was something that was issued at the state level, and it was mandated that ADUs had to be allowed by right, and all towns had to update their bylaws within a certain amount of
I
time.
think I heard about it in late 2024.
Yeah.
But I
and-
can give you a history of it, and it's all on the
Yeah.
website. so.
Yeah, so,
But I think to Kate's point, I think some of when you can just Google it, it's in-law or ADU. So I think from that rental point of view, we have to be very clear on
Yeah.
what language we
Well,
put in
this
here.
language was chosen because this is how it's differentiated in the code. So this language actually is important to keep, because there is language on this in the building code, and it's important to be consistent with it exists in the
all
building
right,
code.
so we'll look
So
at that and present that
we'll
actually
look,
next
yeah.
time as
Yeah.
well.
Maybe to the point of 7.8.3, we look at the language in the future.
Language, what do you mean?
Well, use limitations,
What about?
because it's a little ambiguous.
Oh, that's a technical term, I think. Isn't it?
What is it? I don't
You-
understand.
The term use limitations. I
Yes,
think
that's illegal.
like,
Is that approved by legal to use that?
That actually
Yeah,
legal
this was
wrote
written
it.
by our town council.
Yeah.
This
Town
entire
council, so-
bylaw was written by town council.
No way to amend it, if we wanted to?
It's a use limitation on the site. That's exactly what it is. So there's no way to amend that because that's exactly what it is.
we can amend the language following it, but the use limitation is just a term.
That's what I meant. everything
Yeah,
after.
yeah. that's-
Yeah, everything
that
after
is
that.
like-
Because there's no borders or lodgers, it's like, well,
Yeah.
it talks like that.
It's a
Yeah.
limit of the use, so you're talking about a use of a property, this use is a
Yeah,
single
I
family
agree.
use, so for this use is
That's your
limited to no
use
borders or
limitation.
lodgers.
And that's the section also Doug said he was going to revisit it with Lisa.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about the language after
No,
use
yeah,
limitation.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's leave this for now,
Yeah.
because we've discussed it enough, and we have we have enough what we need to do another draft. So
Yeah.
let's do that. I don't know if Doug is still on.
yes.
I'm still on.
All right, Doug, we're gonna move on to more
Can we
exciting
continue
things.
this though, since it's a
Alright.
public hearing?
I guess we do need to
You do need to
continue
motion
it.
to
Okay, we will, I'm gonna continue this to January 22nd, our next meeting, just because I like to have it on there in case,
You need a motion, I'm sorry, it's a public hearing. I'm sorry.
in case everything else drops, so that we can continue to discuss something, right? So I will make a motion that we will continue the in-law apartment zoning bylaw amendment discussion until January 22nd. Is there a second?
Second that,
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Oh, Montesino, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. Sorry, Angel, that's 3. So we'll be continuing. And,
Thank you, Doug.
all right. Yes, thanks, Doug.
Yeah, no problem. I'll put on the calendar to stay awake on the 22nd. This is past my bedtime.
All right, and I'll talk to you in the meantime about the next
Yeah,
draft.
no problem.
Okay.
And next Wednesday, when Lisa comes in, let's set something up before then, and then so
Okay.
Wednesday, we can talk to Lisa.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Perfect.
Okay,
Take
thank
care,
you.
everybody.
You too.
Bye-bye.
I didn't expect him to stay on that long. I
I
figured
know,
he'd be, I
He's
told him all,
committed.
yeah, I told him all I just needed was for him to explain. And then I figured he would need to go, but we got a lot more information. Okay, I apologize because again, all of these, we set up this agenda, obviously, and then it was, can I have a continuance? Can I have a continuance? Can I have a continuance? And you guys didn't know, Anna did not know either. She was texting me, she's not feeling well, so she was gonna hang on, and I'm like, look, it's all continued, you might as well go, right? We'll have to make sure when we get those continuances to make sure they get to everyone in the email.
When did we know about this?
Recently,
Monday, yes.
yeah.
Isn't that when the agenda was amended? Because there was a new amended agenda on Jan 5th, that was
But
Monday.
if something was continued, to this day, it still has to be on the agenda, and then we have to continue it again, so we can't take it off the agenda, you still have to.
But it to be continued could have been posted on the agenda?
For one
Don't
of
we
them,
do that?
For one of them, we could have it this time, but we're not, unless we know when we post the agenda, we're not gonna amend it every time. We'll just say at the public hearing to be continued. We could let the board know, but.
Yeah, so what happened was that, I think we met on Monday or Tuesday to review the agenda, and, we had, some of these things were like actually, we were gonna pull out the in-law apartments, but we kept that in there because it is a public hearing. We wanted to separate out things that were public meetings versus public hearings. And so we changed the order a little bit, and the J.M. Goldson wasn't on the original one, so that got put on.
Yeah.
But the hearings were still on and valid at that time.
Okay.
Like, because I looked at this and I'm like, holy crap, how are we going to get through this agenda, right? And I fully actually expected, because Jasmine and I discussed this, that zoning amendment, that we would read it, and we would table it, and we would continue it, and we wouldn't talk about it at all. That was my intention. And then, these all continued. You know, for various reasons, they get back over the break, oh, we don't have the documentation we thought we did, we didn't get something back from the engineer, you know, whatever. So they're all continuing, but I thought, okay, now we can discuss that, which wasn't gonna be discussed at all, so. Anyway, but as these continuations came in, we should make sure that we forward those out so that you see that they're continuing, and that we can, because it probably was a panic seeing this thing. It certainly was for me. I apologize for
We
that.
still follow what's on, I think our agenda for the year usually has a column that tells you all the documentation you need for X meeting should be submitted by X date, right? So are we still following that? Because for this meeting, last Thursday, you should have had all documentation. So if you did not have all documentation, that means that this meeting was not happening, right? We talked about it, I know that this came up years ago when we were having this last minute documentation come in and we never had time to look at it. We said we need all the documentation to be submitted to the planning board by Thursday of the previous, so that Friday the board gets it. So did we not know last Thursday, because our agenda online tells that all documentation for that meeting should be submitted by this date?
Wait, but,
Continuation should have been submitted by that date?
If they were
just
coming.
submitted them yesterday and on
Right.
Monday.
right, but the thing is that for all three of these, I believe there is new documentation that we haven't discussed, traffic reports and things like that. So there's things in there, new things in there to discuss.
Yeah.
You know, plus, you know, there's other things like going through draft decisions that we could discuss. So we're not always waiting for new material. Sometimes we already have stuff that we didn't finish discussing. And so we could talk about, we could talk about all these items. There's stuff that is new there. But there's no reason to spend our time doing that when they're coming, when they have, sometimes they're going in different directions.
Yeah, that's what we talked about in December, I think. We knew that. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's just.
It's a little frustrating because it's hard to plan your time and you're doing some legwork and then you come and then you realize.
We can't make them request a continuance a week in advance. They are the applicants, they can request a continuance up until the very second of the meeting. I cannot, by law, that's
Feels a
not new.
little chaotic last few months, unlike the years that we've had. It feels a little too chaotic, and I hope we can figure a way to be a little more organized, but.
Well, I'm just wondering what that means, like,
Yeah. I'm not sure what the chaos is or what you're needing.
It's like
more of
not
ahead of
knowing
time.
information ahead of time. The three big, it was a fully loaded agenda, and it was amended on Monday. That means you're coming prepared for, I was prepared for a 4-hour session today. And
Right.
in turn, I had to shift my workday to accommodate this time. And you come here and you realize, like, you just have an hour.
Sometimes that will happen, yeah. Sometimes
It's
they'll
happening a lot.
continue.
I don't know what can be
So-
improved in our process to make sure we can control the chaos.
but we always have stuff to discuss at 7:15, right?
True.
That, like, those hours are always, like I said, okay, great, these things continued, because now we can discuss that bylaw, which we did for, an hour, maybe, right? So the time is always filled. But it's just filled differently. Now,
Yeah.
I definitely think I could have sent an email out yesterday.
It's difficult
maybe.
because we're getting a lot
Yeah.
of different feedback. So one is I'm getting too many emails of too much information. So we agreed we'd only send information on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But now if something is being continued, you want to know immediately. So we're getting conflicting information. So we cannot request that applicants tell us they want a continuance by a certain time. Not allowed by law. They can literally show up at the meeting and say, I want a continuance right now. I cannot make them ask that ahead of time, and I won't. I will not ask applicants. I'll say, please let us know in advance as far as you can, but we can't beholden them to, you have to tell us by Thursday if you'll be at that meeting or not. So what we can do is we can tell you immediately as soon as we know, or we can wait and discuss it on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, but we need to know which direction to go in, because we can't, it can't be we're getting too many different emails, we only want them on 2 days, but then I need to know things immediately. It becomes tough.
I think it's just about, say even last night, I could have sent out an email, not text, because I'm not doing that so much anymore, but sent out an email that said, hey, 2 of these things continued, but that is going to allow us to have a greater discussion about the bylaw. So see you at 7:15, kind of thing. And that way you could have said, great, I'm going to spend my time reading the bylaw and not about reading 30 Memorial Drive. Is that like what you're saying?
Yeah, just like spending time and reading that GCG report, coming prepared, and now you realize like.
Right, wait, okay, I should have read something else.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. So,
Thank you.
feel free to poke me with a text during the day saying, Tricia, what do you know about the meeting that we don't know? Because typically I'm running around scrambling, and Jasmine is too. So if you're wondering, before I read all this crap, maybe you can direct me to what I should be reading. That will give me a heads up to do that. And I actually would appreciate those heads up, because
I don't know if that's an efficient process, each one of us bothering you with text messages, asking you about it, right?
Well, it's someone.
I wish there was a easier way so that we don't have to bother you about.
I can send on the day of the meeting, but again, we have to be, you can't tell us that we have to tell you something 500 times, right?
Yeah,
So
I would
we
say-
can send out meeting materials on Thursday, and then the Thursday of, or the Wednesday before, I can send out an email saying this has been continued, or it hasn't, or just leave it. But if something has been continued, I can tell you the Wednesday before, if that's better, and still give out the materials on the Tuesdays and Thursdays, and just send one general email to the planning board on
Tuesday and
Wednesday
Thursday
night.
was follow from the last time when we
So
said we're
Thursday
getting
was
too many
sending
emails.
meeting materials. Tuesday was just in case things came in, reports from GCG, anything else. That would get one last push through of meeting materials that had come through between that Thursday that we posted the meeting and the Thursday of the actual meeting. It'd give you time to get those additional materials. And Wednesday, we could send just an email if things have been continued, just saying XYZ has been continued for tonight, nothing else, no other information on that email. Just if something's been continued, we can make it a point to say 1, 2, or 3 have been continued on Wednesday.
All right, so, all right, so let's just continue these off. I don't think we need to discuss anything at this time. So going to public hearings, 30 Memorial Drive, I am going to make a motion to continue 30 Memorial Drive YMCA public hearing until January 22nd. Is there a second?
I second.
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Paul Montesino, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So that is continued. 55 Tilton Avenue, special permit and site plan review. I will make a motion to continue that to February 12th, in that case, to February 12th, they asked for. So is there a second on that?
Second that.
And a roll call vote?
Deepa Venkatai.
Paul Montesino, aye.
Angel Kazadian, aye.
All right, that is continued to February 2nd. And then 240 to 260 Pleasant Street, site plan review and design plan review and site alteration special permit. That's the Metro West soccer fields. We're continuing that until January 22nd. Do I have a second on that?
Can we do it? I second it.
Deepa Venkatai.
Paul Montesino, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye. So those are all continued. We will be sending, maybe it's already got sent around. I kind of updated, I was updating this planning board task list at the same time. Melissa, unbeknownst to me, was also adding information to the task list, not items, based on what she heard and saw in the meeting minutes. So they will even be combined more, but I think it's getting more kind of more streamlined and more organized. But we're not going to discuss that tonight because we've already been talking a long time. What's that? Oh, yeah, I guess so. Planning board processes, I'm just going to put a beep up. I know, you're scary, Deepa. Okay. Really quickly then, I think it's a good thing. I assume no one's like really eager to go into that task list tonight. We're good, right?
I think it's fair to have other people here.
I think so too. Okay, so we have reports, Community Preservation Committee, that's Scott, Metro West Regional Collaborative. I assume there hasn't been another meeting in this month.
Yeah, I think there's one scheduled for Jan 15th.
Okay. I was going to say, I think you reported on it at the last meeting. Comprehensive Plan Implementation Committee, that's what I had mentioned to Anna, that she was going to send that email to Yolanda. Apparently she just did that. And just one thing, I had some other notes, but I'm going to wait for the other members to be here. The one change I am going to make right away, I think everyone was in agreement with this. This is an administrative thing. The general email for planning board, select board has selectboard@ashlandmass.com. School committee has schoolcommittee@ashland.k12, you know, the school stuff. The planning boards is ashland.planningboard@ashlandmass.com. We're going to take off that first Ashland, so it's just planningboard@ashlandmass.com. We're all good, right? Yeah. I'm not even going to take a vote because I see lots of nods. And the rest of the stuff can wait. Administrative matters. We already talked about some of these things. Is there anything new that we have to bring up right now? No. All right, meeting minutes review. We'll start with November 13th. My computer doesn't want to wake up. There we go. I have a couple things, but that's why I need to wait.
Is yours loading?
It went to sleep and now it doesn't want to wake up.
Decided not to, it's done.
Okay, November 13th. Let's see. Okay, so I think we need to list that Scott Pelletier was absent. Usually, don't we? I think usually we list absences, don't we?
I'd have to go back and check that.
So I think we usually do, but so
I would
anyway.
take your word for it, but yeah.
That was one note I made. And then on line 46, the bylaw, we continued the bylaw discussion to January 8th, 2025. It should be 2026. And was there anything else? That was it for that one.
Okay.
Pretty easy. Did anyone else have any changes to November 13th?
I only got the year change.
The year?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. So let's moving on to, we'll approve them both together. So moving on to December 11th. On line 161.
161?
Oh, it should be a 9 by 18 space, not a 9. 9 by 8 is a little small.
You don't wanna do that?
Even for a compact car.
Everybody's driving minis. Mini coupe.
Yeah, it might fit. Boy, I think that's it. I thought I had more, but the rest were just
That was it?
notes to myself.
Okay.
Oh, actually, I did have one more thing. Line 109, 1010, it says you reported that you anticipated the 40B hearings, two of the 40B hearings closing on December 22nd and December 23rd. That doesn't really make sense, does it? 'Cause
We did meet that Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, you did?
Yes, we
Okay.
did.
Boy, that sounds fun.
It was a
All
blast,
right, I bet.
all the time.
Okay, so if there are no other changes, I will make a motion that we approve the November 13th and the December 11th meeting minutes as amended.
Second that.
And a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Paul Montesino, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye, so that is approved. Next meeting is January 22nd. Is there anything else, folks? Someone make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
I'll make the motion to adjourn at 9:39. Paul has seconded, and a roll call vote.
Deepa Venkatai.
Paul Montesino, aye.
Kazadian, aye.
And Tricia Kendall, aye, just because you got to vote on the adjournment.
Yeah, let me just grab the Mylar for this. really
Oh,
quickly.
yes, we just have to sign this